Okay, hey everybody, Teching 101 here. Welcome back to BAN-KAST covering Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War Arc, Episode 23, Marching Out the Zombies, Part 2! I have not done Part 1 yet, so I'll just address that at the very beginning. I apologize. I'm actually having family visit from out of town. They were here last week, so it was just a little bit more busy and hectic around here, so I didn't have time to do the last episode. I still plan on doing it. I don't know when, though. Because we're actually very close to the end of the second core. We're moving on to the finale pretty quickly here. I think it's only in a few more episodes, so I honestly might just try to stay on track with the new episodes as they come out, and then after Core 2 ends, we're going to have a while until Core 3, obviously. I don't know if it's going to be, like, between Core 1 and 2, that was, what, like, from December to July, so that was, what, like, 6-7 months. It might be something similar for Core 3. It might be a little less, might be a little more. I have no idea what they have planned, but after Core 2 ends and there's more time, maybe I could go back and do Episode 22, because I kind of skipped over it, because there is some stuff I want to say about it, but I just want to stay on track with the newer episode that just came out, so we're just doing that one today. If you didn't see last episode, or if you are a fan of BAN-KAST and I skipped the last one so you didn't know, Toshiro's a zombie now. That's pretty much all you need to know. Also, Mayuri's here and doing some really freaky stuff, okay? So, I don't know. Is he going to do some freaky stuff with zombie Toshiro in this episode? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see, right? However, I do appreciate that when Toshiro does show up to the battlefield, Mayuri is very Mayuri the entire time. He has his other zombies. He has, Chiruchi, and he has Dordoni, and Charlotte Coolhorn, and Loopy, and all the dead Arankars there, and he's having, like, a fun time, Mayuri's having a good time, right? He's just like, oh, yes, go fight against the zombie girl and all of her zombies. I am superior with my zombies, right? But then Toshiro rocks up wearing his Vandenreich outfit, and, he's just like, oh, okay, this may be a problem. This might be a little bit of an issue here, okay? And, what's interesting is later on we're going to see Zombie Kensei, Zombie Rose, and Zombie Rangiku. So that's 2 captains and a lieutenant. And Mayuri does not seem to put that much concern toward them as he does with Toshiro. So I think Mayuri at least is acknowledging the fact that, like, oh no, zombified Toshiro, this actually is an issue. I have a way of dealing with him because I'm Mayuri. He has ways of dealing with, like, everyone. But, like, he's like, all right, this might get a little tricky here, okay? So we got Ikkaku and Yumichika here looking on as they have just transformed the captain of Squad 10, Toshiro Hitsugaya, into a zombie, and they immediately realize the level of shit that they are kind of up this creek at, right? Okay, they're like, okay, this isn't good. Like, if he goes Bankai, like, he can, like, literally freeze us all in, like, less than a second, so we gotta really be tactical here. So Yumichika is actually about to use a Bakudo. We don't actually know which one he's about to use, but, like, Ikkaku pretty much just smacks him with Hozoki Maru, like, you idiot, Kito's not gonna do anything, get out of here, right? And so he just knocks him away with his spear. But, let's talk about Yumichika really quick here. So Yumichika is honestly really probably shouldn't be in Squad 11. Like, like, given his battle style and the way his Zanpakuto works, he literally has to hide himself from the rest of, like, Squad 11, like, how he actually fights. So he's the fifth seat of Squad 11. He should really honestly be the 4th seat, but he doesn't like the number 4. He just doesn't like the way the kanji is written. So he's like, okay, obviously Zaraki is the captain, Yachiru is the vice captain, Ikkaku is the 3rd seat. Yumichika loves the kanji for 3. He just finds it the most beautiful. So he's like, well, I can't be the 3rd seat, but I'm not being the 4th seat, so I guess I'll be the 5th seat, because it kind of looks like a 3. If you look at the kanji for 3 and 5, there's more resemblance than at least 3 and 4, okay? Anyway, another thing about him is that he actually has a Keto-based Zanpakuto. His Zanpakuto's real name is Ruriro Kujaku, or Ruriiro Kujaku, all right? However, he always says the name Fuji Kujaku instead, right? And this is something that kind of comes to a head when he's fighting against Charlotte Coolhorn. He reveals all this to him when Charlotte Coolhorn uses that ability to kind of like cover the entire area and, like, the brambles, so nobody can see them fight. That's when Yumichika, it's a really badass scene, honestly. It's one of my favorite scenes in the Bleach anime, the original Bleach anime, where after Yumichika is, like, trapped in this dark void, he's just like, oh, thank you. And then he just gets up and activates Ruriro Kujaku and defeats Charlotte in like one attack. So he has a Keto-based sword, which he describes as like Squad 11 they don't use Keto. We find it kind of like cowardly. You know what I mean? Like the members of Squad 11, they fight, like they're the vanguard unit. They charge in, they fight, they get blood on them, they stab, they slash, they pierce, and their Zanpakutos should reflect as much. I would imagine a lot of Zanpakutos in Squad 11 are similar to like Ikkaku's. Ikkaku's Hozokimaru and his Ryumon Hozokimaru is a very much brutal battle, kind of like get in the thick of it, like summon a spear and stab, or then summon the giant weapons of Ryumon Hozokimaru and like just get in there and pummel the crap out of the enemy. Yumichika's Zanpakuto really doesn't do that. It ensnares you, his true Zanpakuto ensnares you with Keto threads and, like, you know, drains you of all your energy. He uses this against Shuhei during the Soul Society arc as well, when there was nobody around. But I really like Yumichika being a little bit more tactical here, where he realizes, okay, you know, we're currently being attacked by the Quincy's. They are about to exterminate all the Soul Reapers. Like, this is not really a fight so much as it's an extermination operation for the Quincy's, okay? So they've warped the entire Seirete into their own city. We're dealing with like a Quincy Jesus God figure right now. All the sternritters are kind of stronger than us. So Yumichika's like, screw pretenses. I don't care, all right? I'm going to use everything in my wheelhouse if it means surviving this battle and beating the Quincy's. So he used a Bakudo earlier, a couple episodes ago. It's like he raised up the rubble to like protect Ikkaku as he was going to fight Zombie Bambi. And then here he's about to use another Bakudo, and then later in the episode, right after this, when he's fighting Toshiro, very, very briefly, he does show no compunctions about trying to go into Ruriro Kujaku. It's just that he doesn't get the opportunity to, because Toshiro beats the crap out of him before he gets a chance to. So he really had no chance. But, like, I like the fact that he's, like, you know, Ikkaku doesn't even use his Bankai in this arc at all, which is upsetting. Now, there is a reason given that, you know, Ryumon Hozokimaru, because it was a Bankai that was damaged by Eterad Leones when they went into that fight, you know, way back at the Arankar arc. His Bankai is not as strong as it used to be. Akon kind of, like, pasted it back together. Like, he literally took the broken pieces of Ryumon Hozokimaru and, like, super glued them back together. So, if Ikkaku went into Ryumon Hozokimaru, it would look similar to way he does it, but it's like it's like taking a hammer and the hammer breaks and then you just super glue the hammer back together. It might look like it's fine, but after a couple of hits it's probably going to snap apart again. You know what I mean? That's kind of like Ryumon is. Honestly, thinking about it a little bit, it would have been pretty dope if Ikkaku would have went to the Soul Palace. Can you imagine that? I'm a fan of Ikkaku and Yumichika. I really like those guys. Ikkaku and Yumichika go into the Soul Palace. Ikkaku fixes up Ryumon Hozokimaru, gets it even better, gets a new one forged from Nimaya, and then Yumichika learns he actually has a moment with his Zanpakuto, and they kind of like come to terms with each other, like, hey man, quit calling me Fuji Kujaku. I freaking hate that. And Yumichika's like, you know what? Yeah, that is kind of mean. I wouldn't like it if somebody called me by something that I wouldn't, you know, I don't prefer. So I'm going to call you by your true name from now on. And maybe they could work out a dialogue and then Yumichika could learn Bankai or something. Like, I think they could have learned some serious shit if they would have went to the Soul Palace. It would have actually have been really cool. But unfortunately, that's not much for them here. I don't know what Bakudo he was attempting to use, but the only thing that might have, and I stretch, might have blocked this attack is Danku. Danku is like the superior, it's like the ultimate barrier technique of Bakudo. It's like Bakudo number 83 or 84 or something like that. I'm a little bit rusty on my Bakudo numbers, but when it's the technique that Byakuya uses against Zomari to block his attack. And he's like, basically, this is the ultimate Bakudo shell, like shield spell. It will block any Keto less than, any Hado less than 90. So it would not block, like, the Black Coffin shit that Aizen uses, but it's, like, one of the most superior Bakudo barriers. And I think that's the only thing that might have stopped this attack, but Yumichika is not skilled enough to know that. He used a Bakudo, the one he used a couple episodes ago was, like, in the 50s, I think. And the number does indicate the level of, like, expertise you have to have, like, the difficulty to actually pull it off. So, and Aizen even said, like, once you start getting up into the 90s, they become very unwildly and hard to control, even for Aizen. So, you know, if Yumichika's like in the 50s right now, that's not bad. That's pretty good, but it's not even close to enough. So with one swing of his sword, Toshiro just summons, like, he pulls a Todoroki and just does, like, the divine ice-piercing wall, heaven-piercing wall, whatever it's called, and just whoosh! And, like, the entire area is just covered in a massive ice mountain. Thankfully, because of Ikkaku's quick thinking, Yumichika is saved. However, we see Ikkaku's foot here completely frozen in ice. It's not looking very good. I think by the end of the arc, I don't think Ikkaku's missing a leg or anything. So I guess they were able to, fix him up. They were able to heal him after this. I don't really think they do much though for the rest of the arc. Do they go to the Soul Palace? I don't think they do. I don't think Yumichika and Ikkaku go to the Soul Palace with like Shunsui and everybody. Maybe they were there, but I really don't remember them at all. I think this is kind of like the end of their. They have one more moment where they're like thanking Mayuri. I think that's like more in a flashback, for saving Zaraki, but that's like pretty much the only time they have like a scene after this. So they do survive. They don't die, thankfully, but who knows? Maybe we'll see more of them in the anime. So Ikkaku, because of course he's all about lucky and everything. So because Ikkaku's of course all about luck and everything, he's like, well, I guess I got my leg frozen, but I guess I'm lucky if that's the only thing that it cost me. And then, boom, Toshiro just shows up and is just like, yeah, I guess I'm lucky. That's all the thing to have. Shaw! God! Shaw, quit stabbing me! And zombie Toshiro just shows up and just proceeds to just violently stab the crap out of Ikkaku. And he's like, oh man, I spoke too soon. So Ikkaku is pretty much going down here. He's bleeding out. And Toshiro has no compunctions about this now. He is a zombie in Giselle's thrall, as it were. So if it's like attack and murder all the members of the Gotei, he attacks and murders all the members of the Gotei without question. Yumichika does attempt to use Ruriiro Kuchaku here, but it's actually a really brutal. I think Yumichika might even get it worse than Ikkaku, honestly, considering that he dodged the first attack with Ikkaku's help. So he's about to use Ruriiro Kuchaku. Toshiro proceeds to make this big ice spike protruding out of his kneecap, and then boom, knee Yumichika, like impaling him on this thing, like right in the stomach. And then he like headbutts him and then just shoves him to the ground. I don't know, zombie Toshiro is way more practical in fighting than regular Toshiro is. He's a lot more brutal, if nothing else. He's making like ice armor and stuff, like spikes coming out of his body, like stab the shit out of his enemy. Like, come on, Toshiro, I understand you're the Gotei 13 captain. There's a certain level of decorum you're supposed to have, but like, man, you could have done that kind of shit the whole time? Because there's really nothing that indicates here that because he's a zombie now, he's gotten, like, way stronger. They never really say that. They don't say that, like, oh, he's a zombie now, so he's 3 times as strong as he used to be. Like, nothing like that. He's as strong as he always was. It's just now he's a lot more brutal, and it's, like, given the order to, like, exterminate, he's gonna go full on with that, okay? So, we have a moment here where Mayuri is examining Toshiro, and he's kind of coming to the conclusion of, like, okay, wait a second here. You're a zombie as well, except you're moving a lot more, like, fluidly than all the other zombies that are, like, literally zombies. Like, up until now, the zombies that Giselle had been using were, like, Squad 11 members and everything, and they were all, like, typical, like, Walking Dead zombies, like, like that kind of shit. But Toshiro's, like, a lot more freaking responsive. He's even capable of speaking. So it's like, Mayuri's like, could it be that you were turned into a zombie before you died? And then, of course, in typical anime fashion, Giselle shows up and she's just like, oh yeah, if I turn them into zombies before they die, they're a lot more responsive. Also, if I kill them, before I kill them or before they die, and I turn them into zombies, they literally lose all sense of self. So it's just like a win-win for me. And I'm like, okay, now there's some stuff with Giselle's power that I never really understood. And this is one of them. So making them zombies before they die so they're more responsive, that does make more sense, because after you die you have like rigor mortis and stuff taking over and your body becomes more stiff and your body begins to rot. So that does make sense. But the thing that I was always a little confused by is, why is turning them into zombies before they die, why does that like wipe their memories? And by the way, it also seems to be very clear that when she turns people, well, no, not really, because when she turned Bambi into a zombie, she specifically mentions that Bambietta was dead. She had to kill her. Giselle had to finish off Bambi herself to turn her into a zombie because she was a Quincy, right? So the rules are a little different. But zombie Bambi was still, like, able to speak and still had, like, a little bit of her personality about her. You know, and then Zombie Toshiro's kind of the same way. Like, they're still able to speak, they're still able to talk. So, I don't know, I think it's a little bit of bullshit when Giselle says, like, oh, their minds are wiped so I can control them like mindless puppets. It seems to imply, like, if I kill them before, if I turn them into zombies before they die, I can control them like a puppet. But if I turn them into zombies after they die, then they still have a little bit of themselves about them, because it's weird that she's making this distinction, you know? It was a little weird to me. But at any rate, yeah, she could control Toshiro 100%, as well as, like, Kensei and Rose when we see them later while they're in this state. It also leads to, like, a reddish hue on their flesh because more blood had to be utilized in order to change them into zombies because they're stronger. Mayuri mentions that if the Ryatsu of the opponent is lower, then maybe 1 or 2 drops of blood is good enough, but because the zombies are like captain level or lieutenant level, she has to use a lot more of her blood into the heart of the person, and then that blood will then spread throughout the entire body, creating like a reddish hue. And so that's the explanation for that. So, yeah, Mayuri being typical Mayuri here is like, where is the fun in controlling those without a mind of their own? It's most fun when you have somebody that can resist you a little bit, you know, like, oh, please, Mayuri, please don't make me kill my wife. It's like, ah, yes, of course, well, you know, your opinion really doesn't matter to me much very here, but I love your objections, yes. And I was like, that's the kind of jacked up dude Mayuri is. I also love the little running gag. It was in the last episode 2 where Mayuri's like, I'm basically one big ball of compassion, so I really don't want to kill other people, you know, I will have my zombies do that for me. I just don't have it in me, you know what I mean? So, this is where the fight begins between Toshiro. Well, no, actually, Toshiro and Charlotte Coolhorn first. So, Coolhorn shows up, and he's just like, oh, I'm really glad to fight against you. And so Toshiro just slashes him one maneuver, and Charlotte Coolhorn goes down. It's just like, oh, no. There's even a scene in, so this is volume 66, the Tankobon. This is chapters 593 to 590. The very beginning of 597 is where this episode ends. And there's an interstitch in between the chapters where even as Charlotte Coolhorn's lying on the ground bleeding out, I mean, he's a zombie, so he's not going to die. Mayuri even basically says to, like, I'll just leave you there until you're drained. I'll leave you there until all the artificial, like, synthetic blood that I put in you drains out of you, and then I'll take your empty corpse that's all dried up, and I'll bring you back to my lab later. So, you know, yeah, that's your punishment for sitting there. But as Charlotte is lying there dying, he's like, huh, I'm kind of sexy even as I'm sitting on the ground bleeding out, breathing heavily, aren't I? Oh, yes. So that's Charlotte Coolhorn. But we get the idea of a level of power that Toshiro really has here. I also love the force field that Mayuri throws up. It's like, yeah, Mayuri just has a force field. This is like the only time he uses it too. It's like, oh no, captain level Shinigami is about to bring down his sword and just like, oh no, I have a force field. Just give me a second here, Toshiro. I have to chastise my zombie for attacking without my desire. You know what I mean? So just stay on the other side of that force field for a moment. It's just like Kido, you know, now eat your heart out. Freaking Mayuri could just at the snap of a finger create like a captain class level barrier. Like, I'm sure it couldn't stand up to like captains like, you know, Bankai and shit, but the fact he could just like do that whenever he wants and it's like the only time he utilizes it is pretty crazy. But yeah, he has a little force field. Couldn't you tell he was beyond your capabilities? Man. Toshiro should probably be able to squeeze through one of those, honestly. He's not a very big dude. He should probably be able to squeeze through one of those squares. Though, oh no. Knowing Mayuri, though, he would probably be like, you think you could squeeze through my barrier? That's what I expected you to do! You know, so that's what Mayuri's always about. So the fight between Mayuri and Zombie Toshiro begins, right? And Mayuri even says, he's trying to be clever with him. He's trying to, like, be all, like, sadistic mad scientist, but he's like, yes, trying to converse with you is useless. It truly is, because you're nothing more than a thoughtless puppet. So I suppose we'll just get on with the fight. You know, and so he begins the fight. He says, there are several drugs that I want to test on you. Yes. And then we get the title of the episode, Marching Out the Zombies 2. And we have the opening titles here. I'm going to skip over those, but it's funny because before the opening titles, he's like, yes, I want to test a bunch of drugs on you, Toshiro. It's all for the sake of the Seirete, you understand? And then we get the titles, and then as the titles end, he says the same thing. Now, This is a very common thing in anime where, you know, you'll have somebody say something like, it's time that we fight, and then you'll have the opening titles, and then it will resume like, it's time that we fight. Like, it's not intended to be he's saying it twice, but in this particular instance, he is saying it twice. Like, he literally is repeating himself for reasons that you will see very quickly, okay? So, this is like an entire chapter in the manga that they speed through in like a couple of minutes, okay? So, Toshiro just, like, begins to clash with Mayuri. Mayuri's actually keeping up with him pretty well. He mentions that he installed a sensor inside of Ashisoki Jizo, and this is just the sealed form. They're not even using their Shikais yet, right? So he installed a sensor in Ashisoki Jizo that allows the sword to, like, bend at, like, a 60-degree rate, like, angle. So, like, whenever an attack comes at him, the sword will automatically, like, adjust at the proper angle and, like, you know, whatever, to block it, to parry it. So he basically made an automatically parrying sword. I love Mayuri because, like, there's so many Shinigami. Like, Yamamoto would have hated this. Yamamoto would have been like, yo, we are all Shinigami and we shall train every day in the old ways of kendo in order to properly. And Mayuri is just like, screw that. I'll just build a machine to do it. And so he's actually managing to keep up with Toshiro fairly well with this, like, automatically parrying, blocking sword. I love Mayuri. I mean, he's a horrible, horrible human being, but his fights are always the most interesting. I think Kubo even came out and said that Mayuri is, like, his favorite character, and he even cosplayed as him once. Like, oh my god. So he's like, yeah, you could try to attack me with a regular sword. I'm gonna block every one. Now, obviously, there's a reason why Mayuri is saying that. Mayuri does not just say this shit for no reason like a lot of other characters. Mayuri says this because he knows the second he says, I have an automatically parrying sword, what's the thing you're going to do? It's like the first thing you're going to do logically is like, okay, well, I won't attack you with a sword. I'm going to attack you with a Hakuda attack. I'm going to try to hit you. I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to like smack you with my kneecap or something, right? But Mayuri is expecting that. He's like, yes, I knew that because I said my sword blocked everything, you would obviously try to kick me from below. So I have this magical little doily thing that I have, and the doily will protect me. It will automatically block all of your strikes. Yes. So he uses this little doily to like cover his knee, and then that blows up, so he loses a leg. And then he activates Daigren Hyorimaru. It's a little bit more clear in the manga. So Mayuri just detonates this cloth and it blows off his leg, Toshiro's leg. And then Toshiro, without missing a beat, immediately goes into Bankai and then creates like an ice leg. Boom, right there. Just manages to cut right through him and just like make ice that just like, just cuts him straight in half. And it's like, all right, fight's over, right? Nope. There are several more drugs I want to test on you, Toshiro, yes. And then Toshiro's kind of like, what's going on here? And it's like, it's all for the sake of the Seirutei. It's like, all right, yeah, sure. And so the fight, same exact thing, goes all over again. Like, yes, I've installed this sensor, blah, blah, blah. And Toshiro's like, yes. And so this time he goes into Daigren Hyorimaru and freezes Mayuri completely. He's like, all right, I'm not going to stab him. I'm just going to freeze him entirely. So whatever he did, he can't do it again. Unfortunately, you are strong indeed. The hell is going on? He's like, I have many more drugs that I want to test on you, Toshiro. So, the drug that was utilized, as Mayuri explains, and at this point he's beginning to be like, all right, so at this point I can actually explain what's going on. All of my drugs give a new and wonderful experience to the users. So we saw this when he fought against Silaporo Grants, when Silaporo was rebirthed through Nemu. In that scene, there was a drug that was inside of Nemu that Sile ended up passing through and gaining, and so that drug was everything slowing down to an insane degree, where like the mind and the body are just not synced up enough anymore, and so like hundreds of years were passing for Sile, where meanwhile his body was still like, it was only like a couple of minutes, it wasn't a big deal, but that was how that fight ended. And this drug works to, and this drug is even more confusing. This drug works by once a person reaches a predetermined moment in a fight, and that happens, they will loop back to another predetermined moment, and it's a constant loop, like over and over and over again. So the point that Mayuri chose was the moment Toshiro kills Mayuri. So the moment Toshiro kills Mayuri in any way, he will then reset back to where he was with like there are several more drugs that I want to test on you, that kind of shit, right? And he mentions that there is a hard limit to this. You can't keep going back forever. After about 10 times, your body will begin to break down. And I love this shot with Mayuri right here. This might be the thumbnail. In other words, if you do not kill me, you cannot move forward. You know, it's like, so it's quite a predicament, isn't it? So it's a very Mayuri thing to do. And he says, well, the thing is, though, there's a rub with this. There is a problem here. It works by affecting the hippocampus. So after about 10 times, you're going to have a serious side effect. You're basically going to become completely paralyzed for about 30 seconds. So even a zombie like Toshiro still collapses. It's a cool drug. It's a cool shtick. I'm just so... Okay, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Did Toshiro even fight Mayuri? Because that's the thing that doesn't make any sense to me. It's affecting his sense of time, right? But it doesn't actually affect actual time. He's not traveling. Like, Mayuri did not invent a time-traveling super drug. All right? Like, so what was with all the scenes with Toshiro, like, clashing with Mayuri and then going Bankai and slicing him in half? Like, was that all in Toshiro's head the entire time? Like, was that just how... Because, like, they looked like they hadn't moved. The entire time this was happening, Mayuri was just standing there. It was just like replaying the whole fight in his head, like over and over and over again, and then eventually his body like locks up and he just passes out. You know, right? But the thing is about that doesn't make any sense is Mayuri explained, like, you know, oh, I installed this sensor in Ashisogi Jizo. It automatically adjusts. So that's information Toshiro would only gain if he did attack Mayuri. So is like I'm so confused. Is like did Toshiro like go to attack Mayuri and then they're clashing and then like when he goes Daigaran Hyorimaru, he doesn't go Daigaran Hyorimaru, he just stops fighting and then walks back over to where he started and just like the loop continues? Or was he just frozen in place the entire time while the drug was taking effect? See, that's the thing. The drug affects his perception of time, not time itself. So did the fight even happen is the question. But anyway, this is the moment where Toshiro does show that he still exhibits fear and like he's like, oh no, please don't do it, oh god. So Mayuri stabs him with Ashisogi Jizo, activates his Shikai. That paralyzes him like it did with Uryu back in the day. And so he's now, numbed him so he can no longer move. The nervous system is locked out, except he can still feel pain. So Mayuri is like, it pains me greatly to do this in such a pitiful fashion, but whatever. So he takes out a syringe and he injects a new drug inside of Toshiro, and Toshiro begins to let out. It's actually a very blood-curdling scream the voice actor does for Toshiro here. It is pretty... I can't remember who the voice actress is that plays Toshiro in Japanese. But yeah, it's absolutely blood-curdling, man. It's really good. But then we have, boom, new zombies on the block. It's time for the new zombies on the block, ladies and gentlemen. We got Kensei, we got Rose, and we got Rangiku. And this is the moment where Toshiro is just kind of like, Mayuri is just kind of like, yes, we have 2 captains and a lieutenant. Whatever, I don't really care about them. I'm going to still experiment on Toshiro here. Wrong cars, deal with this. So they all attack. Chiruchi attacks Rose, which is a great combination. Oh, poor Toshiro. But it's actually really cool that Chiruchi fights against Rose because they both use, like, whip-like weapons. Like, Chiruchi uses, what's her Zanpakuto's name? Okay, Rip, is it Golondrina? Is it that? Might be. It's been a while since I remember Chiruchi's fight against Uryu. But, I know the commander is Rip for it. Anyway, she uses like a yo-yo whip, and Rose uses Kinshara, which is also a whip, so that's actually a really cool fight setup. Rangiku fights against Lupi, or Zombie Rangiku fights against Zombie Lupi, which is a fight they actually had earlier in the Rancor arc. They actually fought for a little bit there, and actually, Lupi had her, contained, like, had her, like, wrapped up in his, Zanpakuto and his Resurrection, and he had these very kind of, like, lewd, responses, like, he was kind of, like, leering at Rangiku's boobs, and it's just like, oh, you got a great figure. So it's actually, these are all off-screen fights, but it is actually interesting. They are fighting again here, right? And they do end up, the zombie Rancors actually do end up winning. There's also a really funny scene later where there's actually also a really funny scene later where Mayuri is explaining the way that he infected Toshiro with the drug to begin with was the Arankar's blood has the drug inside of them. So when Toshiro sliced Charlotte Coolhorn, he got the drug. That's how he got the drug administered to him to begin with, right? And there's this funny scene where Chiruchi shows up with, like, her arm bleeding, like, oh, you mean if I just smear my blood on you, then I can be free? And Mayuri's like, don't even bother. I am immune to all drugs I create by default. And Chiruchi's like, damn it. Okay, so we get the buffer for the episode. It's Kido. I think the other one is Senbon Sakura. Speaking of Senbon Sakura, we have the fight between Byakuya Byakuya and Robert Akutron. Also, na are there, and also Candace is there as well. So this was an off-screen fight in the manga. We don't get to see this at all, really. It's just it cuts back to Byakuya and having defeated all 3 of these sternritters. So I'm really glad they showed this. We even get to see Nanana's sternritter ability. We get to see, well, he doesn't actually explain it in detail, but he uses a technique called morphine pattern, which is a technique that he uses against Aizen later. And it basically, he's Yu, the underbelly. And he's basically allowing him to see weaknesses in people's spiritual pressures. So he, like, overlays this U over him, like a little grid pattern, and he sees it through his goggles, and then he can kind of notice where, like, the weakness in your spiritual pressure is, and he can kind of, like, attack you in those weaknesses. However, he's looking at Byakuya, and he's like, he has no weaknesses. What the hell is this guy? And I'm debating whether or not it's actually Byakuya being immune to this, and more of just the clothing he's wearing is, like, the Oken. It's material that was made at the Soul Palace, so it probably doesn't work on him too well, so he can't really see a weakness, or maybe Byakuya just has no weaknesses then. Anyway, Candace is fighting him, but she runs out of juice pretty quickly. She actually even mentions, like, I ran out of power, so I can't fight him anymore. And then we have Robert Akutron. So Byakuya takes out Nanana and Candace pretty quickly, and it's actually a one-on-one fight between Robert and Byakuya here, and Robert even goes into Sclavere and uses Walk of God. And he even gets a cool face mask here, and then he powers up, and he just, like, the Flash, he just, like, zoom, and he just, like, moves wicked fast right at Byakuya. Byakuya goes into his Bankai to deal with Robert Akutron, and that's what you have to do. You're dealing with Robert Akutron, Sternritter letter N. If you don't go into Bankai, you're not going to be able to beat him, right? We don't get to know what his Sternritter letter stands for. This would have been the perfect time to show it! He's literally in a one-on-one anime-only fight with Byakuya. You could have just shown what the damn letter stood for. There is one more moment. There's one more moment with Robert later on when he encounters Latato right before the Asuelan, and I'm hoping that's the moment where they finally explain what his power is. But they didn't explain it with BG9, so I'm actually not holding out hope they're gonna reveal it for Robert. Oh my god, but he activates Walk of God and he can move really fast. That's his ability. And he fires a bullet. It goes in like Matrix, like bullet time, and it enters Senbon Sakura. It's actually a really cool shot to see the bullet like travel through Senbon Sakura, but then it just gets shredded and devoured by Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi. And then Byakuya just knocks down, Robert right here. He wins, obviously. But that was cool. I like to see that. It was kind of funny to see Candace fighting and just being like, "Oh shit, I'm out of juice," and then she just goes down. And then Nanana using the morphine pattern, like he's invincible. I can't stop him. And then Robert going into Sclavere. But at the end of the day, Byakuya wins. Latato and Meninas are still here, and they're kind of watching from a distance. And like I said, Latato's more of the tactician. Meninas is just kind of going along with it, but Latato is just like, yeah, there's probably no way that this is going to be difficult. He took out 3 Sternritters at once. But she also mentions that, like, is that really the same guy that was, like, you got the shit beat out of him by Asnote? Because if it is, then this is a problem. We might not be able to beat this guy. So at this point, Latato brings up, like, wait a minute, where did PePe go? His ability might actually, it might actually even out the playing field here a little bit. And Meninas has a line. Keep in mind for this really quick, she specifically mentions that, oh yeah, PePe is, I mean, his ability might work, but he's gross. I think we can manage without him. I don't even want him to be here. He's a total creep. You know what I mean? I don't even like being around him. And so Latato's like, well, even if, he's a pig, at least his ability is pretty damn useful, right? And so at this point, we have Shuhei arriving. And Shuhei's looking around, and he's like, oh, hey, I took out one of them, Captain. Kuchiki, oh, wow, you took out 3 of them. Wow, that was, okay, damn, all right, you're pretty powerful. Oh, man, look at all the bodies. Oh, look at all the corpses. All right, whatever. So Shuhei's even thinking to himself, like, man, I only defeated one of them. Man, I'm not even close to captain level, really. Shuhei really is, like, the Yamcha of this entire arc. Like, he gets his ass beat so many times. Somebody needs to make, like, a Shuhei-owned count in this arc. They really do. Does Shuhei have any wins in this entire arc? He gets his ass kicked by Driscoll. He gets his ass kicked by Mask. He gets his ass kicked by PePe. Gets his ass kicked by Byakuya. Gets his ass kicked by Lilia during the Soul Palace. Like, poor Shuhei, man. Oh, dude. Anywho, he is walking towards Byakuya like, man, Captain Kuchiki, you defeated all of them. That's pretty cool. And then he takes Kazashini and he goes to attack Byakuya, and Byakuya, like, blocks the attack. He's like, what are you doing, Shuhei? Shuhei's like, what do you mean? Byakuya's like, are you being controlled by the enemy? Because you keep trying to stab me. It's really annoying. Could you please stop trying to cut my head off? Like, Byakuya is blocking it without any real problem, but he's like, would you please stop doing that? Are you being manipulated? And Shuhei's like, I'm not being manipulated. I'm just trying to kill you for PePe. Obviously, I love him. He's my favorite guy. So that's when Latato is like, oh, yeah, he's here. Yep. And so here we go. This is it. One heart and one body split in two. So sad. All right. So this is PePe Waccabrada, Sternritter letter L, the love. And yeah, and right now he's kind of okay because he's just like a fat guy wearing a tank top floating around in a magical disc. We're going to see his Voltstandig later, and it's a thing. Yeah, I can see why Meninas views him as like gross and a creep, you know what I mean? And we're going to see that in a moment, actually. So his ability is he literally has a love beam. If you just want to know his ability, it's literally a love beam. He also has this cool staff behind him that has an eyeball and wings. It actually does have a name. It's kind of like, it's called like Bachanol or Bachanel or something like that. It does have a name. And his Quincy cross is inside the staff. So that's how he goes into his Voltstandig. One of the few Quincy's that actually has like an item that has the cross in it rather than the cross being on their body somewhere or on like in their eyeball like Asnote or whatever. I guess, yeah, so he has a love beam. He literally puts his hands together like a heart and he fires a love beam and whoever it hits falls in love with him. So he uses the technique, PePe Waccabrada the L, the love. He uses this on Meninas. Latato dodges it. So Meninas gets hit square in the face with this love beam, and like just a second ago, she was like, oh my god, PePe is disgusting, he's so gross, and then now she like instantly starts drooling for the guy, is just like, oh, PePe-sama, and then her arm, she activates the power, which is an ability she hasn't really shown. I mean, she's shown the power. She has super strength regardless, but she has the ability to, like, She-Hulk out if she wants to. So she's like, oh, PePe-sama, I will fight for you. Oh, She-Hulk! And then just decks Latato right in the face. And Latato's like, wait, Minnie, stop, please! Oh! And just like, oh, man. So... yeah, she's a muscle waifu for sure. Look at them gains. Look at them gains. She's got like 3 biceps. I don't know if that's even possible, but it is for Meninas. So, she punches Latato in the face, and then PePe's going on this whole soliloquy over here about like, my power is love. Battles are so sad, are they not? Because battles are always about love. Love for your wife, love for your family, love for your country, love for your comrades, you know? All battles happen out of love. And honestly, there's this, by the way, there's this really smooth, like, jazz music playing in the background. Thank God this fight only lasts 1 episode. It's just one fight. He introduces his power, and he gets the shit beat out of him at the end of it, and he dies, too. Fantastic. But there's like a smooth jazz track playing through the entire background. It's kind of something similar. I think that was playing when Shinji was on screen earlier. And it really does work. It really fits, like, the battle, the kind of fight they're having right now, because PePe is not the kind of, like, he's not a frontline fighter kind of guy that, like, really gets in the thick of it. He relies on other people fighting for him. That's the whole gist of his ability, right? And his love powers, right? So there's this really smooth music playing in the background, and then that carries through the whole fight until he finally gets defeated. So... it's also really great that Byakuya is the one fighting him, because Byakuya is not like, he's just looking at him and he's just like, look, I wasn't really paying attention, you going on this whole freaking monologue about love and battles and everything. The point is you can control others. Okay, so PePe's ability, yeah, at its core, it is the ability just to manipulate others, but it's not the same, and it's a juxtapositioning, honestly, between Giselle's zombies. In fact, PePe even brings up later that he's been able to control Giselle's zombies with his love power earlier. So, whereas Giselle's ability is literally manipulating others like puppets, like mindless zombies, like, you know, go over there and fight, you know, that's that fight. His ability is he literally instills the concept of love. You know, do you understand the concept of love? Into others. And so they think they are being manipulated, but they think it's their own actions. That's essentially what he does. There's also a couple of other, like, there's different ways that this power could have been explored, because love is a very general kind of term. There's all sorts of different varieties of love. There's the love that you feel for, like, your parents, for instance, like family. There's the love you feel for, like, your friends, like very platonic kind of love. There's the love, of course, you would feel for a romantic partner. There's, like, well, I would say lust and love are kind of different things. They could be the same thing, but not conceivably, but not necessarily. Like sexual attraction versus actual love. So there's different avenues you could really explore with this. It doesn't really, like the kind of love that, like, he instilled in Meninas. Like, Meninas, upon getting hit with the love beam, she was, like, instantly, like, drooling for PePe. Okay? But that wasn't the kind of love that Shuhei exhibited. Shuhei wasn't like, oh my god, PePe, dear lord. You know, it wasn't anything like that. It was just, like, a more respectful kind of, like, like, Byakuya, I understand that you're a captain and everything, but, like, PePe wants you dead. I have to kill you, Captain. I mean, I still respect you and all that, but PePe wants you dead, and I love him. I love that man. I would die for that man, so I gotta do it. I'm sorry. I gotta kill you. Right? That's the kind of love that he felt in that respect. So, could have been addressed a little bit in a couple of different ways. It's a cool power. It's an ability that you could do some stuff with, but yeah, it's probably best just to skip through all of this, especially with PePe being the one that has the power, right? So, Byakuya comes to the conclusion pretty damn quickly of just like, all right, I'm just going to knock out Shuhei, the people that are being controlled, and then I'm going to just cut down the puppeteer, and then the power goes away. So, PePe attempts to use his love beam on Byakuya. The beam, in the manga, the beam seems to be just like light. Like he's firing light at you. And in the anime, it's very clearly, like, it has substance to it. It fires off as sort of like love goo. You know how Asnote had the fear goo? PePe has the love goo. Okay, and so because it's the love goo, it's kind of semi-tangible. Byakuya is actually able to cut it with Senbon Zakura, so he does that, except PePe says, why did you block it with your Zanpakuto if you knew that getting hit by it, if you're sentient and you get hit by this thing, you're going to be affected by it, because Zanpakutos are also sentient. So now Senbon Zakura, like, turns on Byakuya, like, trying to stab him, right? So Byakuya immediately throws it away, which is, he admits, is kind of a mistake on his part. He even mentions, like, hey, stealing Zanpakutos with souls is something I can do anytime. That's why I didn't bother stealing a Bankai in the last war. I didn't have to. I don't have to worry about using the medallion. I can literally make Zanpakutos fall in love with me. I can make any sentient thing fall in love with me. So in that regard, Byakuya's, of course, Zanpakuto's on Senbon Zakura is sentient. It's like a fragment of his own soul, but it has its own personality, right? So at this point, then Shuhei picks up Senbon Zakura. It's not like Senbon Zakura goes into, like, Shikai by itself. Like, the whole point of a Zanpakuto is it needs to be wielded by somebody. It would be kind of funny, though, if it's, like, just, like, a floating Senbon Zakura, and Byakuya is just, like, fighting against that, and then it goes into Senbon Zakura, it goes into the cherry blossoms, and then Byakuya has to defend himself against his own sword. That would actually be really funny. But no, because it's, like, in order to go into Shikai, it's more of, like, a collaborative effort between Byakuya and Senbon Zakura, and they're having just imagine they're having a little bit of a falling out right now because of the love ability. They're having a little bit of a spat at the moment. So Shuhei gets back up because he's bleeding. Like, Byakuya knocked him out, but Shuhei gets back up, and PePe's like, oh yeah, the power of love can do amazing things. You know, even people that are on death's door can get back up because of love. And I like that because it is kind of referencing, like, a trope in anime, like the friendship trope in Fairy Tail, where it's like, I have friendship, I have love, I could stand up and fight. And so PePe's like, I have access to that now. I can make people, like Shuhei's on the ground bleeding out, getting knocked out by Byakuya. He's like, I must get up. I must fight. Like, there's really dramatic, epic music playing as Shuhei's trying to get back up. He's like, I have to fight for PePe-sama. He believes in me, and I can't let him down. You know, it's like the scene. Like, remember the scene in, like, Naruto when Jiraiya's dying? And he's, like, floating under the water and the really dramatic music's playing. And he's like, well, right before that, where he gets back up to deliver the message on the frog. And he's like, I gotta get back up. And there's that really triumphant music playing. That's what was playing in Shuhei's head when he was getting back up to defend PePe's honor. So, Byakuya is fighting against Shuhei, but he's using Hakuda. He's literally having to block a Zanpakuto using his hand-to-hand combat. Now, Byakuya is really good at hand-to-hand combat, but this is like a sword, and this is kind of a problem, okay? So he's like, man, I shouldn't have let go of Senbon Zakura. I should have figured out something else to do, because now I have to fight bare-handed. That's not great. So PePe keeps going on his little, oh god, here we go. Why did it have to be that scene? Oh my god. All right, so this is his, you know what, I'm just going to take it off screen really quick. That's his Volt standing. There you go. You get a good look at it? Okay, that's too much. All right, that's his Volt standing. He turns into a fat guy wearing a diaper. There you go. He turns into Cupid, all right? A really fat Cupid wearing a diaper. All right, that's fantastic. By the way, in case what you're wondering if, like, what Meninas is doing in the background, because didn't Meninas fall in love with PePe too and beat the shit out of Latato? Where's Meninas at? Shouldn't she be fighting Byakuya? She's actually still fighting Latato. It's still, like, that didn't take Latato out in one hit. She got back up and now is dealing with Meninas right now. We don't really see it in the anime or in the manga. It's happening in the background right now because Latato shows up later and she says, oh, I had to deal with Meni myself. She's not dead, but I had to deal with her. So that's what's happening right now in the background, if you were curious what happened to Meninas. So yeah, he goes into his Volt standing, PePe, and he uses this love rope technique to kind of ensnare Byakuya. And then he's about to, like, hit him with his bow and arrow, but then boom, Zombie Rose and Kensei show up, and they now have these marks on their face to indicate they are actually Mayuri zombies instead. And at this point, oh wait, does Shuhei get his ass beat by Kensei again? Oh, he does! Fantastic! Alright, so yeah, Shuhei, man, it is not his week! Oh my god! Shuhei doesn't... If I was Shuhei at this point, I would just stop trying. I would just stop trying. It's just like, I've gotten my ass kicked about at least 5 times, one of which by my own captain in the last week. You know what? I'm done. I'm going to go hide under a hole somewhere. Let me know when the Quincy's are beat. Or if the Quincy's win, just let me know. Whatever. Just wake me when it's over. I'm done. I'm not getting my ass kicked anymore. So Shuhei goes down, and Kensei picks up Senbon and Sakura and walks over to Byakuya, and Byakuya's like, all right, where's this going here? And Zombie Kensei, like, hands... I remember doing this in the review back in the day. It was like, Zombie Kensei give Byakuya sword. Byakuya Zombie Kensei's best friend. It's like, because they're not talking. They're just, like, mindless zombies. And so that's when Mayuri shows up, and he's just like, perfect enemy to test my zombies for it. And so they have a little bit of a philosophical conversation on this because Kensei and Rose are, like, technically dead. Like, they were killed by Gremmy. And then Mayuri brought them back to life as his zombies. Or I guess Giselle brought them back, and then Mayuri. And then Byakuya has a line where he's like, couldn't you have just killed them? We see a flashback here with, like, Chiruchi trying to use the blood. But Byakuya has a line where it's like, couldn't you have just, like, you know, killed them? Like, put them out of their misery? Like, these guys have been through enough. They got killed and they got brought back by a zombie. Like, you could have just put them out of their misery, but you brought them into your zombies. And Mayuri says a line here where he's just like, that's the duty of the 13 court guard squads. The duty of the court is to fight to the death. And wouldn't the idea of fighting after death be the thing that the court guard would love to do? And Byakuya just says, you're rationalizing this. You are justifying this like crazy. And Mayuri's, of course, like, you know, difference of opinion, whatever. You know, that's Mayuri. And he's just like, yeah, I don't care. He wants his Kurotsuchi corpse squad. I want my zombie corps. You know, it's like, and I will have it, damn it. I've wanted an army of zombies ever since I was a little boy. You know, and Santa would never bring it to me. So I killed him and made him a zombie. You know, it's just like, yeah, that's Mayuri 100%. So he doesn't care, you know. That's it. We do get the flashback where after taking over Giselle's zombies, they stab Giselle, but she's not dead because, you know, she's a zombie. There's a thing later on where Mayuri's like, oh, so the zombie girl is a zombie herself? And it's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Of course she's a zombie, right? So she gets stabbed here by Zombie Kensei and goes down, but yeah, we'll see Giselle later. So PePe gets back up and he fires he's trying to fire a love beam here, but it hits the Zombie Kensei, but it doesn't work, and then he just gets the shit pummeled out of him. This is when PePe goes like, oh, I've been able to control Giselle's zombies before. And Mayuri's just like I said, I don't know who this GG person, oh, is that the zombie girl? Oh, whatever. They're not her zombies anymore, man. It's my zombies. And so, oh my god, look at that freeze frame. Look at the ripple. Look at the fat just ripple as Zombie Kensei is like, he's using freaking Tenken Tachikaze. Just boom, boom, just the ripple. And he gets the shit pummeled out of him here, and he gets knocked into a building. And PePe's like, oh, those loveless bastards, they don't even care. And then that's when Latato shows up, and she's like, you know, bleeding from the mouth from like Meninas like clocking her in the face. And Latato is just like, she's walking towards PePe like a damn serial killer. She's walking toward him like Freddy Krueger or Jason or some shit, and just like, you tried killing us by pitting us against each other. You gotta pay the price for this, man. So she activates her ability of the gluttony, and her mouth begins to open up and just like a chain chomp. And yeah, PePe is he's about to get eaten. He just gets devoured by Latato, and that's the end for PePe Waccabrada, Sternritter L to Love. All right, so moving on. That's the end of the episode. PePe just gets nom nom nom, just chomped down on. Okay. There was also, by the way, a scene, I skipped it, where he does hit Byakuya with the love beam, and it doesn't work. And once again, I think it's because of the outfit he's wearing. I think it's the same reason why Nanana's morphine pattern didn't work, is the same reason hitting, because it hit the love beam didn't hit Byakuya in the face like it hit Meninas. It hit him in the back of his like cloak. And I'm thinking, all right, this is an Oken. This is like special material made by the Zero Squad's like body. So I think that like, yeah, it can prevent like love and stuff from, you know, like permeating it, or it's like some like mind control abilities affecting the user. So anyway, at the end of the episode, we do get the last shot with Yuha, Hashwolf, and Uryu arriving at the Soul Palace, looking on, and they're just like, ah, so this is the Soul Palace. And we have the ending, and that's it. And so next episode is Bleach episode 24, Too Early to Win, Too Late to Know. So I think we're going to be, yeah, this might be the next, I know that it's a two-parter is the end. So I think this might be the next episode, might be the last one, because this is kind of getting into the part where they're invading the Soul Palace, fighting against the Zero Squad. I think this might be the last episode, or maybe it's the two-parter next. I'm thinking it's probably that. Makes the most sense to me anyway, but maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, this would be a great place to end it. Maybe, actually, they might just do the Zero Squad fights, like Ichibe's fight and everything. Ichibe's fight is, it's pretty close. It's coming up here in a second. Yeah, I guess maybe right after Ichibe's fight ending it could be a thing. But we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that'll be next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Once again, apologize for the lack of an episode last week, but after this core ends, I'll go back and do episode 23 at one point, or episode 22 at this point. This was episode 23. 24 is next. So yeah, that'll be BAN-KAST. Remember to subscribe to the channel and check out BAN-KAST over on Spotify and Google and everything like that. You guys have a good day. Teching, signing out.